Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday night's final workshop at Monarch Family Chiropractic. I'm Dr. Kristen Zawada. Welcome, and thanks for joining us. Tonight, we are discussing vital needs. So we're switching up a little bit here, and we're going to work with the triangle here. A lot of the triangle looks familiar to people when you think of like food pyramid and things like that. So this can be a familiar picture that we use to denote what is important, what's most important, and what is not as important or vital to our needs and vital to our survival, really. So when we talk about vital needs, we're going to talk about the 4 things that we have to survive. And what is that? And if it was eliminated, you would die. Like we're talking about that vital of a survival need to our bodies, to our being. So I know that most of the time when we record, you guys may be muted. We've got everybody in-house today too. So I'm going to try to make this as interactive because it's just always better if you guys are interacting with me than just listen to me. Yeah. So I want to talk about looking at the pyramid. Let's talk about what are things that come to mind that are the most vital.
Water.
Right. Water is one of them. Absolutely. Air. Yeah. Is another one. Sun. Yeah. Vitamin D. Right. Things that definitely make everything else grow and live. Right. A component of what oxygen and sun, what different chemistry brings to our system. So we're going to go most important, second, third, fourth most important, and some of the things that fall even beneath that. So before we start writing things down, anything else come to mind that we cannot survive without?
Electricity.
So how about, right, our electricity. Yeah, Steven's onto something. So food, right? Need to put some nourishment in. It's my favorite one. It is not the top of the list, but it is certainly my most favorite thing to partake in. Anything else that we would die without having in our day-to-day, or not even day-to-day? I mean, think about how long you can go without some of those things we're talking about, right? So yes, internally. So when you say blood, the component of what our body has to do with that blood, right? Sure. In order to use it and then process out our waste and have clean blood, right? So that good oxygen versus the carbon dioxide. So that's all functions of what our heart, right, respiratory, circulatory system have to do. So there's a couple that people usually say that you guys haven't said yet. And so let's start plugging them in on the chart. So first thing that Devon said was air, right? And
I saw water.
Oh, sorry, water, right. So there's where water falls on the spectrum of hierarchy of needs. Lori said food. Food falls there in the triangle. Air was said. And that's falling here. Why might have done that backwards?
Say O2 first and H2O second.
Sorry. Yep.
Because 3 minutes without air.
Yep.
3 days without food.
I wrote it, said it right, wrote it backwards. Yeah, totally. So H2O here. O2 here. Yeah. So one thing, and then Stephen hit it right in the head with it. He said electricity. So our internal electricity, right? What runs us, what drives us is our nervous system. We physically know we need these things to function. Food, you see a lot of times that, I guess we see this a lot with certain religions, monks, many people that can go up to 30, 40 days without food. We've seen you can go, usually a few days, depending on the climate you're in, without water, maybe more. And again, a very dry state, maybe less. depending on where you're starting out at too in hydration. obviously we know when emergency teams come to, you know, I say a scenario, or we walk up on an accident, motor vehicle or pedestrian or anything, right? We're not going over and tapping on their shoulder and saying, hey, what'd you have for lunch today? Can I get you a snack, right? We're saying, do they have a pulse? Do they have oxygen coming in and out? Because our brain only lasts a few minutes without air, without oxygen, right? And then yes, ultimately, our power, our electricity, the conduction literally of electrons in our body is what that brain and nervous system are doing to allow all of our body to process these things. So the one thing that you guys didn't mention that a lot of times does get mentioned is sleep. Sure, I mean, things like shelter. And I mean, you see these crazy shows, you know, the reality shows on TV, like people living out in crazy elements and they're dealing with the elements, right? They're dealing with how do they feed themselves? How do they get water? They, you know, are dropped in a place with nothing and they have to either filter it or find it. And we can do without either quality of this or lack of it for good periods of time. Now, it doesn't mean we are thriving, but it means we're still surviving. Our vital needs are being met if this is happening and this is happening. And again, over longer periods of time, of course, but sleep falls into there. And there's a lot of people that can have done when in being tortured, in being in certain very extreme settings, have been, you know, like tried to be kept awake for 30, 40 days at a time. So again, also sleep and other things are important. And yes, your body needs to rest to recoup and recover. And that still falls down here. As vital as it is, we can go a long time without it. So one reason why we're doctors of chiropractic is that this is the most vital need to every organism, human life, anything that has a brain and a functioning nervous system, telling it how to take in air and what to do with it, what to do with the water and what we need to hydrate. And if these things aren't functioning well, then we can't really even process the food that we're putting in. So I say we talk about this level of importance in this hierarchy because at many times I hear so many commercials, there's something on the TV all the time, or even just in the public eye of an exercise program, or how somebody is doing with their fitness or their supplements. We want to talk about how you're creating the greater wellness in your life. What is your wellness plan? And is it starting from the top down, from the inside out, right? So that's something you hear in chiropractic a lot, but we call it the initials ADIO, right? Above, down, inside out, because that is truly how as human beings and as any survival being functions. It's not from the outside in. It never has been and never will be. So in this hierarchy, you know, when someone's coming to me asking me about food, their diet, this is the regimen that they're on for a program, that's great. And it's a component of health. And if we can't process that component, it's not more important than if this isn't being addressed. So all of you on the call, most likely, are doing these steps, right? And then engaging in how can this be cleaned up or changed or supported or incorporated? But I really don't tend to get into a conversation about what somebody's supplements are until they've been doing this kind of work for a long time, so that the body can and will process everything we put in it better and function better, many times without as many changes as is happening down here. Someone's coming in with a slew of different things like supplements or food, great. And if that's not changing things, then it's because we're probably not tackling the root problem or how it can process those things and handle those things. So we talk about how well have you constructed, you know, the healthcare plan for you or your loved ones. What's a component that we can, I guess, control? And if the lowest need isn't, or highest need isn't met, how it doesn't matter what these things are, right? They don't sustain us without this. So Certainly areas we can clean up are things here, especially living in a city and not in other areas where we're not as exposed to chemicals, right, into all these things. So that of course supports the that taxes our system. All the more reason to support the hierarchy. So this isn't a really lengthy workshop because this is really about key things, and let's talk about these things once we know these are in check, once we know we are supporting the system in its proper way and for the right amount of time. So that's why many times you don't hear us get into giving you any exercises, postural things, correctional things, talking anything about diet or supplementation until we are well into maybe your second exam or third exam. So maybe 24 visits into your care at the minimum before we're starting to talk about some of these other components for that exact reason. Your nervous system needs enough time to process through patterns and change probably decades of degeneration before it can start responding to other things well. So we know that this tends to be the system taken for granted because we don't really have to think about it, right? It's automatic. The system is running in the heart and the lungs and the kidneys and the liver and my digestion and my hormones, all those things are running in my system, and I'm not thinking about it and telling it what to do, versus things that we feel like, we have more control of and that we can, that does come in and out of daily decisions, right? Like like we were talking about a second, what's for dinner tonight? Like the constant things that we think about fall into here. So we like to bring this into light because, again, the things we're not thinking about are of more importance. And so as long as we're addressing that so that the body is functioning at its, meant capacity and abilities, then these things make sense to address, or these things become usually easier to address. And even though we may talk about pillows or sleep habits and those kinds of things, it's for us to see what patterns your body is experiencing and maybe not, that is affecting how your care is going. And yet this falls down here, even though we may talk about it early on in care, it's one of those things that these are the people that have had 7 to 10 pillows at home, right? Have spent probably hundreds or $1,000 on pillows over years, and they're like, I don't know, nothing fits, nothing feels good for longer than maybe a couple weeks or maybe a month. And the people that have to constantly shift is, again, because their system is not at ease, so nothing feels good or right or comfortable. So then that's where it's like, let's get through some repatterning of the nervous system and really supporting that vital system of the body to then bring more ease into the system and then address what's most comfortable or what fits you best. And most likely you already have something that does, it's just the system hasn't been in a good supported way to accept that, right? Or to allow that good movement or good rest on a pillow. Because neck posture, the curves, parts of those vital needs aren't being met internally, right? From that automatic system of the nervous system. So there are other things that fall in these categories, and thinking about the things that we do impact that. So is exercise fantastic to be doing? Heart muscle movement, blood flow, de-stresses us, of course, in its priority when the system's functioning and humming well. Just like when people come, I'm gonna sleep more. I'm gonna, things that are really wrecking our system, things like sitting, being on computers all day in the same posture, not having any disruption of that. A lot of like the things in technology, right? The texting and things that are stressing our nervous system. So to kind of wrap up some of the things that are why, again, we say the vital needs go in this direction, is that if anybody is on this call or watching this recording that doesn't make sense, then knowing that our brain sitting up here sending that signal through our entire bodies to do all of this and take in all of this and process all of this is through that nervous system. And so if that nervous system is free of its interference and is functioning at its capacity and communicating with the brain, This is where it has to be that signal out as well as signal back in, right? So it's a continual loop. If that isn't happening, then that electricity isn't turned on to our system at 100%, or maybe even 80% or 70%. And so the body works harder and is more stressed in processing our world. So in supporting the brain, that allows that conduction to be optimal. So if you're not sure where your spine is and you're not sure of your alignment or the proper curves of your spine, this direction, that all take pressure off that electricity system, then that's why we do what we do. And that's why we're here to support your healing process and your vital needs. So it is Patient Appreciation Week here at Monarch. And that means that we have set aside appointment times for our patients, loved ones, friends, family, whomever they connect with, to come in at our expense and be evaluated to see if their electricity is on at full capacity or not. And so if there's a call to action, it would be assess your system, assess your hierarchy of needs. And if this one's being addressed, awesome. How can we help support you in these? Or possibly other ones that may fall down into here if you're at that level of health and care. So we change this paradigm of where most people tell me these things first by seeing our community, supporting our community, and encouraging them to come get checked to see where they are here. That's how we change the trajectory of our health and our well-being and our community. So if any of you want to unmute and chime in, I'm all for it. I'm going to be able to probably hear you, but not see you. So there may be some other questions. By all means, send them in, come in with them when you come in for your next adjustment. And thank you for being here, supporting your vital needs to life and those around you. And we probably have about 3 appointments left or so, maybe 4 for the week, that are for new patient experience at our expense. So if there's anybody you're thinking of that you know doesn't have this in their priorities, let them holler at us and let us check them and see how we can support their health. Thanks for joining us. Have an awesome rest of the Tuesday, and we will see you in the office. Bye, everybody. At least pause recording button.
No, it's not.
Top. There, red button.